Welcome, welcome, welcome. We are going to roll into another talk.
Hello.
Hello, Theresa. So I want to once again thank everybody for joining us today. This is obviously a day that's full of talks. We got all the talks saved on the cool day. So not that the other day was any less cooler. Just in case we have any new faces in here today, I just want to reintroduce myself and what we're doing here. My name is Donald Harris, been in the games industry for umpteen years, and this is my charity organization called ATX Game Makers, where we strive to help increase the diversity in the games industry. And I have one of my, like, from the start almost, like, I think you were the first person in the Discord probably when I first started this thing. But one of my like very good friends, Theresa, who also is now in the world of recruiting. And so the name of this particular talk, and I'm sorry I got to refer to my notes, a lot of stuff going on, is how would a game designer design a recruiting agency or a recruiting firm? So I'm going to start this off by asking Theresa, asking you to tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about your background so we know who you are.
Hello. My name is Theresa Pudenz, and ironically, I know him from the internet through the 90s when I went as Ikabeep on IRC. So I'm a kid of the 80s and 90s, Air Force brat, and had some tragedies as a teen, and I went 100% into multiplayer online competitive video gaming, and I was so rare as a girl then woman that I could search my pronouns in games and find myself on the internet. And the scene back then was pretty different, and I then got into computer networking, hacking to protect myself for the DDoS blackmail of my internet for, how the community was. And I wanted to make a difference. So anytime that I got into wanting representation as a little girl, I would hear, if you don't like it, make your own games. And so I left high school early to get into the game industry and tried to do just that. And I have been doing all kinds of things. So QA for 15 to 17 years, community management, public relations, business development, recruiting a little bit, and account management.
And don't forget your current role.
Right, and I've done scripting and art and animation and all kinds of things. So my current role, what happened was I had a baby and I became a mom, and this was right before the pandemic happened, and it's very much like living in a pandemic. And I was successful at QA. I had large teams of about 73 different teams all at once, shipping AAA titles for large publishers, and was very good at creating training organizations, training departments across Warner Brothers, Sony, and then outsourced vendors, hundreds of people. And they said, you're really good at this. You can do hiring manager interviews. You can train them. How about you become a recruiter? And so I got us on Good Morning Arizona, 2,000 applicants in a week, and filled up a whole test warehouse, doing 13 interviews a day, and hiring people. And then,
So you've been in this industry for over 20 years, over 25 years.
Yeah.
You've had multiple different roles. And now you're sitting at Nimble as a designer and business developer. So how are you using those skills from way back when, and then your introduction into gaming? How are you using those skills to shape Nimble? Because I don't want to overspeak at what you're doing at Nimble, but I know that you are starting something new at Nimble.
Yeah. So I moved into the staffing industry being very successful at getting people into the game industry from my skills of public relations and QA, knowing the development cycle and the test cycle. And I was moving further and further away from the original thing of I want to make a difference for people that games aren't designed for. Mm-hmm. And once I talked to Donald here, and I said, I need to update my resume. I want to work on games again. And I don't want to be a recruiter or a salesperson. I want to work on games. That's the whole point. And can I please be officially the community manager for ATX Game Makers? Put it on my resume, and I did a lot more work, even as a single parent. You know, I'm adding things to my schedule. And he said yes. And some old friends that I used to work with at Flying Lab that did a pirate MMO. So I worked on a pirate MMO for several years. Saw that I was updating my resume, and they scooped me up, said, hey, Theresa, with your background, we would like to officially expand what we do for staffing and make it a staffing agency for game developers by game developers. So we will give you tuition reimbursement, which is huge because I never had that chance. When I started, I was doing 120-hour weeks. There's no time to go to school. There's no time to learn anything. There was no YouTube. and now, I'm taking 3 classes this semester and doing this. So I got the go-ahead from everyone at this indie game dev company to multi-title as recruiters. So I'm a game developer now, officially, after over 20 years trying to make games, and now I can do that, and I can make a difference for other people in setting up great contracts, in just treating people well.
And so let me make sure I clarify that, right? So the Nimble, which is a game developer, is becoming or extending out into recruiting and staffing. So it is, I think that's pretty important to kind of highlight, because some of the larger companies will get a recruiting department, but they won't be people who have been brought up in the industry sometimes. Sometimes they are just, good recruiters, but they come from other industries. And so they come over and
right.
and participate in recruiting for our industry. So the question, I kind of want to dive a little bit deeper on this. So looking in particular to the design stuff that you're learning in school now and all of these things, so how do you apply those design concepts in particular to what you are now responsible for on the other side of Nimble?
It is so cool. So I now, since I've been in the industry for a long time, I have the old guard of game designers telling me, what to do. And then I have, I go to school at ACC here, and I'm on a game design track, and they're telling me all of the new stuff. So I get to combine those things. And I recently learned of an MDA framework. So it's mechanics, there's your core loops, dynamics, and that's like how you do those core loops, and aesthetics, that's like the vibe, right?
Yep.
And that's what designers are learning today. And I forget who wrote that, but it was at GDC, and Kalani told me about it. I don't know.
Gordon Walton?
I don't know.
Okay.
There's the internet, right? So I've been trying to find my voice, because a lot of women, and myself in particular, I've had to kind of code switch. I've never been myself to be like, I believe this 100%, and here's what we should do, here's the decision we should make. And for the first time, I have the power to make those decisions, right? Mm-hmm. So when I take that game design MDA framework and apply it to what we're doing, The mechanics would be that we're recruiting, finding candidates for the game industry, and we're making partnership agreements to handle game company staffing for them. So, we'll be there for that. And then the dynamics, that's our values, both our personal values and company values. And then the aesthetics, that's we're coming from a game dev point of view instead of a staffing point of view, where the policies are meant to make money. And when you go from a game dev point of view, it's to improve lives, right? It's to make games. It's to do what we all love, and we pour our hearts into what we do. Yeah.
Okay, all right. And so one of the things is, so you spoke about, you brought up the points of, representation, and like when you were coming up and, people telling you, okay, well, hey, if you don't like it, do it better, right? And so coming back to what you are doing today as both game designer and recruiter, in particular, through the recruiting and staffing side of your work, what values do you feel that you are able to bring into the industry? And like, how is your work as a recruiter and staffer changing the industry?
That's it. So this is the one I hadn't practiced because it's hard because it's so close to my heart, right? The friendships that I made back in the 90s, they still exist. They're still out there, and the connections that I made, they're still out there. All of the people, like the talk before this, she's talking about how do you not get demoralized, right? Mm-hmm. And I thought 100% I would be demoralized into a void forever if it weren't for my friends. They're gonna find me, they're gonna see me, they're gonna pull me out of that void. Yep. So while you can connect with people, and I think that's why I'm so fearless about it, is because I know, people really need other people, mm-hmm. and we've got to connect, and we've got to make it better. And,
you're helping build, or are you targeting those types of folks that build relationships? I hope I'm talking loud enough in the mic, but like, when you look at folks who are coming through, obviously you're looking at their skill sets, you're looking at, how they applied for the job and things like that. But like, because you also interview, my understanding is you would be one of the first folks to interview these people coming in. So it's like, when you're identifying those key characteristics and values, like what really, like, oh yeah, that's something I like. That's something I want to see in this industry more of.
Oh, like what do I look for?
Yeah.
So in myself, I have to have compassion. I have to have empathy. I have to really think of the wide spectrum of what people need, like healthcare, better pay. I'm not going to be out here saying let's make this better. I have to pay them well for the work that they do. So it depends on whatever they do. So everyone has a kind of thing that they do really, really well, and people don't always know that in themselves. So if you don't know that, if you don't know what you do really, really well, try a million things. Put them on paper, talk to somebody like Donald or I, yep. and we'll be like, wow, that's totally direction you should go. Go after that, right? There's no canned answer, unfortunately, and a lot of people that have one, I don't know if that would work.
It's funny.
Yeah.
So you kind of skip that answer. Kind of bled into like one of the other questions that I wanted to ask you, definitely, which was like, so for folks out in the audience who are not employed or still looking to get into this industry, like, what are some of the key takeaways that I can do, like, tactically to make myself stand out to a recruiter such as you?
All right, so one, talk to people, go to events. There are so many, so they mentioned itch.io for mm-hmm. game jams. Donald has ATX Game Makers. We have an event page. That is amazing.
Game Dev Beer Night.
Yeah, there's all kinds of meetups, but just doing that networking. And then beyond that, practicing what you want to do. Don't just join the game industry in QA as like a priority number one. If you want to be an artist, do art, go after it no matter what. Follow your dream. It'll eventually work out if you keep practicing. Practice you're going to be great. And if you network and practice, if you're doing a mistake over and over again, your mentors are going to be like, do it this way instead, and you'll improve, right? Because practice isn't always 100% thing. Yeah.
That's true.
Right.
That's very true.
And so that's been another thing is I ask people to mentor me. So when I became a recruiter, I looked on LinkedIn and I said, who would be a good recruiter that aligns with my values? And I found a person that runs the volunteers for the Pride Parade in the UK. Okay. All of the volunteers there, right? And they talked about how they handle recruiting and how they handle, staffing, et cetera, and brought a bunch of good ideas, like take the bias out of your resume and highlight the skill that you have, because that will end up bringing more diversity into wherever you're going.
Do you ever go into or so I know, like, when I look at some resumes, I will actually see lines, not necessarily like, oh, hey, this is my mentor, but hey, this is a reference that you can call for backgrounds and things of that nature. Like, when you reach out to them and you have those conversations with some of those folks, are you finding that a lot of those people on the reference side are mentors, or are they just, like, I've had people, like, give me references of, like, oh, yeah, this was my college dorm mate. And I was like, man, that's... Like, he's gonna say you're cool and stuff, but he's not gonna give me that dude can chug a beer. I was like, no.
I don't know. I haven't seen references so much lately. I feel like references are going down.
I don't think so. I mean, maybe from
many? Yeah.
I got a lot of references.
Right?
I don't know.
But one thing that I do like to do in interviews is LARP. I don't know if you guys like LARP, but Nordic LARP is pretty cool.
You do that during an interview with potential candidates.
Right. I come up with the competencies that you need for the role, and then I come up with scenarios that would identify whether that person would be able to handle a situation of that sort, and then find out if they can. Yeah. And because I'm not a person that likes tenure, to go off of, like, you must have 10 years experience in game development of leading a production role or whatever it is. I feel like a lot of the time that's written that way because they don't know what encompasses within the 10 years, right?
Okay,
right?
okay.
And so when you know those things, you can go after them specifically.
All right. Cool. So where can the people find out more about you, Nimble, and where will you be in the coming weeks?
All right, so this week I'll be in Austin. It's spring break, so I will be parenting and working. But next week I'll be at GDC, and we have a booth there from Wednesday to Friday for Nimble Workforce, and there's a website, nimbleworkforce.com. And it has a little bit of information. It's pretty straightforward. But I will be pitching people's portfolios and resumes to potential employers that are looking to hire, and aligning people that fit the roles that they're looking for with the skill level that they're looking for.
So before you go, what I'd like to do is present you with the ATX Game Maker's Book of Talent.
Thank you.
Which has a bunch of resumes, portfolios from a diverse community that you've helped me create.
I love it.
And definitely help pass that out.
Do I get to keep this? I have one.
Of course you do.
All right.
Yeah, for sure. Don't worry, I'm going to put like 12 of them in your bag before you go.
Okay, good.
Do we have any questions for Theresa? I guess I'll get down and...
I'm very nervous, by the way.
Y'all just heard me,
Although
old man grunt.
Although I'm extroverted, I'm awkward.
So one of the things you said stuck out to me. You said remove the bias from your resume. Can you explain that a little bit more?
So there's a bunch of really horrible statistics of what your name does even to hiring managers on whether they want to look at it or not. And so I use my initials, right? So, and then otherwise, I take all kinds of stuff out. Yeah, anything that would identify something that's not directed for the role specifically. And I even make resumes per discipline. So I've done a bunch of different kinds of things. So I'd have a QA resume, I would have a communications resume, a staffing resume, stuff like that. Yeah, and so 100% go after the skill involved and the software competencies you have too. So if you know Unreal or Unity or any kind of coding or, Photoshop, yeah. Yeah, you're welcome.
So I was at a panel earlier today that mentioned that there is absolutely no problem hiring a diverse group of entry-level people into their companies. Their challenge is retaining them long enough to upskill them into mid and senior level positions.
What?
I know. So my question for you is, what are you seeing in the market? Is that validated by what you're seeing in the market? And what are you seeing from employers where they kind of can't get out of their own way?
Here's where I try not to be an old grizzled woman. So years ago, I had a therapist, and her daughter was HR for Microsoft and had a bunch of stats across the industry. Women are paid $10,000 less. So when you go in there and you ask for a number, right? Ask for $10,000 more was the idea. So I see that's common, where a lot of people don't have a voice, and a lot of companies that are after money will take advantage of what they can get away with, and so it's wonderful to have friends, to have people that really are very supportive and can clarify what's going on, right? So what was your question again, just to make sure that I answered?
What you're seeing in the market validates what
Yeah.
those panelists have.
Yes, yeah. Well, and people will leave because they don't feel heard. And so yesterday there was like, if you have a diverse team and you're not allowing them to do their jobs and work together and have their voice be heard, you don't have a team. And something like that. It was really well said, and absolutely, because if you don't have the health care, if you don't have the pay, you'll leave. And then if you're treated poorly, like I was so different, I would enter into a room being so different, I'd be isolated. If I made a friend, they would insinuate something, and that I just wanted to work, and so I saw a lot of women leave because of that. Yeah. Yeah.
All right, got one more.
It's getting better.
Hello.
Hi.
So I've been in the industry for 12 years, and I've been an art director for certain projects where I was part of the hiring process. And something that I see that is common practice is that you have a goal of what your project you want it to be, and you hire personnel to achieve that goal. And it's very frustrating to me because I see that a lot of times they don't utilize the talent that is in their environment to create something unique. So in your eyes, in your experience, what do you think the strategy is for creating a really rock solid team and then determine what that goal project could be?
All right. People that can get along with each other and go after skill, 100%. All skill, all the time. That's really it. If there's a lot of people bringing up other stuff, and it ends up being negative and there's like grumpiness, it ends up wasting time every time. So try to stay positive, try to work together. I mean, there is that toxic positivity thing, but that means be realistic about work. I liked the women that were here earlier, and I talked to Donald just an hour ago or so. People don't always give you honest critique. So I will write stuff, it'll be bad. I know it's bad, but I need to get a deadline. I need to meet a deadline. And I'm like, here, look at this. And they're like, wow, I hate it. Like, I know. But it at least gives you a starting point. And when you're not honest to people, especially of marginalized gender, because you're worried about what they'll think, it's doing them a disservice, right? So people need to be honest with each other, work together toward whatever it is they're working on. So if, they're doing art, do art together. Yes.
Right on. Do we have any other questions? Oh, yeah.
Hello. Okay, so I have a question regarding two common pieces of advice, and one that you touched on a little bit. I've heard both that it's better to have a general skill set, wear a lot of hats, be well-rounded, which makes a lot of sense, but also that it's really good to highlight your specialties and show what you have a depth of knowledge in as well as your breadth. And I wanted to know, at what points in the job hunting process do you think it's better to highlight one over the other, so that way you can be focusing on what people want to see?
I feel like the breadth part is great management, right? Great management will have a little bit of insight into all these different things and be able to grow those people to really achieve what they want to achieve and work together. And then the depth part is specializing and being like, this is who I am. This is what I want to do. Yeah. And if you can, so getting into volunteering is great. At some point, I volunteered a little too much. So remember, you can get paid for the stuff that you volunteer for and go after it. And prioritize getting paid. Yes.
Prioritize getting paid. I'm gonna get that tattooed somewhere.
I'm sorry, Donald. Sometimes I will have to not do community management stuff.
Give you $5, huh?
Thank you.
All right. So we are coming up on the end. We do have another speaker coming up, but I think they are delayed. They're delayed anyway, so I'll figure it out. So thank you, guys.
Thank
Can
you.
you tell us where? Can you tell us where we can find more of you?
So I am with ATX Game Makers on atxgamemakers.com, on the Discord all the time, saying good morning. And also I am with Nimble now. They're in the Pacific Northwest, and I work remotely here, and I have made nimbleworkforce.com.
There you go.